Welcome to Friendeavor, the podcast, the weekly podcast where we explore the highs and lows of friendship with your hosts, Danielle and Kayla.
As we journey through life, our friendships often evolve and change, ebb and flow, and sometimes even come to an end. Danielle and I are lifelong advocates for the power of friendship, and we are here to guide all of us through the many challenges and joys that come with building and maintaining strong, meaningful connections with those around us.
Join us each week as we deep dive into the intricacies of friendship, from navigating conflicts to fostering new relationships and everything in between. With insightful interviews, personal anecdotes, and expert advice, Friendeavor is the perfect podcast for anyone looking to strengthen their bonds with the people they love.
So, whether you are on the go, taking care of chores, or just settling in, get ready to explore the world of friendship on Friendeavor, the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Friendeavor, the podcast. I'm your host, Danielle.
And I'm Kayla. Welcome back, everyone. Episode 21.
Episode 21, the evolution of friendship. We are walking it through from childhood to adulthood. Kayla, we are going to break this down into basically three main categories of age. Childhood, basically from about toddler age to preteen age, like tween age. Into adolescence, and then into adulthood, because there's a lot of different stages of friendship, and they are definitely based off of development and age and that kind of thing. So you ready to dive in?
Yep.
All right. So kind of early on in this like toddler, preschooler age time, you have what's called like play-based friendships. So you're at daycare and you're playing together at the blocks. You don't know these kids. You don't have any relationship with them outside of what you experience together. And when you're that age, what's in front of you is your entire life, right? You don't have any reference point for other things.
Exactly. And I think that's why, kids find it so much easier to just approach new people and go and talk to them, because the most important thing to them is play. And not what will they think of me,
right?
What can this be awkward? Like, kids don't think of that. So if the most important thing to them is play, then going up and asking someone to play with them is just they don't give it a second thought. I think it's great.
Yeah, exactly. Kindergarten, you show up to kindergarten on the first day of school and you just like, hey, do you want to be friends? And they're like, sure. And then you're best friends. Yeah. And that's literally how it starts. Right. And friendships at this stage are not the bonds are based off of the mutual location, like I kind of alluded to. They're based on simple criteria. Like you said, they're not worried about perception. It's proximity, common interest. Oh, I like blocks, you like blocks. Oh no, he's got the Tonka truck, but I want the truck. And then you're fighting over that kind of stuff. You're not fighting over loyalty. Oh no, you called me. It's like she called me a name at that. Oh, she called me a boogie or whatever. Like it's stuff that's not going to be deeply established things. It's going to be proximal things. Childhood friendships are definitely influenced by parents and environment, particularly I would say under the age of 8 or so. Again, your parents are setting up play dates. They are making sure that you are going to like classes, if you're like in an art class or if you're in a sport like karate or something like that. They're the ones who are dictating the environment that you're in. And then they're also modeling social behavior. So I know of people who are like, oh, our people who are best friends, like me and my best friends are like, our kids are going to be best friends because we're going to make them be. And I say make with air quotes, but like when you're share an environment and your parents force you into a certain environment, a certain times with like people in certain places, you are just naturally going to develop friendships with people, and your parents are going to play a huge role in facilitating that.
Right.
I mean, even if you think about it, like church is obviously so much more than a social environment, but there is a social aspect to it. So parents who go to church, they put their kids in Sunday school. That's where your kids are making bonds with other kids. You're learning about the same things, and
Mm-hmm.
your environment is the church, which is incredible. I still like, even though I don't live in the same area that I lived going, to Sunday school, when I think of, oh yeah, I grew up with him, I'm thinking we went to Sunday school together. I remember a friend of mine got married and I went to his wedding, and then another mutual friend came to his wedding, and the three of us took a photo. We don't really have a relationship today, but I have a photo of me and these two guys because we were in Sunday school together. We were like the rascals, and our bond comes from
Cute.
being in the same class. So that was, I like that photo.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool. From
That's
the
cool.
age of like 8 to around 12ish, you're getting into peer acceptance and rejection. Around fourth
Mm-hmm.
grade, you're going to start experiencing, um, maybe not cliques at that age, but you're going to start experiencing the mean girls coming out, and people who are influenced by their older
Mm-hmm.
siblings, and friend groups are starting to split off. And it can be difficult. There's much harder stages, especially in the teen years, but that's when it's starting to get, you're starting to see it. And now my mom,
Definitely. Yeah.
I don't know if Brett ever told you about this, but did he ever tell you about the fourth grade talk?
The fourth grade talk. No, I don't think
So
so.
fourth grade rolls around and Karen Anderson's like, all right, listen, fourth grade. And she told everything I just said. She told us the friends are gonna start.
It starts in fourth grade.
It starts in fourth grade. I mean, third
Funny.
grade's over, fourth grade starts, boom, you don't have any friends anymore. No, I'm just kidding. But she would, that was how it was presented. Like, hey, just basically be aware. Don't get your feelings hurt
Mm-hmm.
just because, little Sally is gonna ditch you and go be friends with Susie. It starts
Right.
around that age. It could be a little bit older. It just depends on the personalities in the group. So
Yeah.
children start to navigate the complexities of social dynamics, which they will not stop
Mm-hmm.
uh navigating it, for the rest of their life. There's always going to be some sort of social aspect that they have to be aware of, and they're going to experience both
Right.
acceptance and rejection by peers.
Right. My so my niece is 6 and my nephew is 4. So a little bit younger than what we're talking about here. But I realized the other day just how funny it is that they're now starting to recognize like relationship as more than I play with you.
uh
Um, I picked them up from school the other day, and first of all, they were like arguing with each other. Like before we even got out of the parking lot, they weren't friends. Like they're now starting to pull that "I'm not your friend anymore" thing, which that just became a thing like in the last few months. They stop it, you're touching me, stop, stop, stop. Well, you're not my friend anymore. So yeah.
that is crazy.
So yeah. So we got to talking about like, okay, you can't just say you're not my friend because you're bothered that he's touching you right now. Like
Right.
you can't just say that. But then it like went into this whole conversation with me and my niece who's 6 and talking to me about like people at school that she has disowned as friends because of what they did and da 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 and new friends that she's made. I'm like, girl, you are 6 years
Weaponizing
old.
friendship.
Right. She's very emotionally in tune though. So like very emotionally developed for a 6 year old.
Yeah, and
So yeah, it was just funny to see them.
that
Yeah.
brings up a good point, is that if you have kids who are, maybe recognize things at a younger age than maybe the if a 6-year-old is recognizing what a 9-year-old usually recognizes, it is so
Mhm.
important for parents to facilitate that growth. Because if you just,
Yeah.
first of all, try to ignore it, then it's going to grow without your influence, and you can't stop that growth. um
Hmm.
I learned about all of this in my grad program because we had to do childhood development. And first of all, there's no stage of growth that happens in a human's life more than between the ages of 3 and 4. And
Hmm.
so that's when they are talking in complex sentences, and they're becoming aware of the world around them, right? And so if you happen to have a kid who is accelerating faster, by the time they hit 6 or 7, they might be having understanding of older, especially older kids, older, like the oldest child, because they're learning directly from their parents and not from their older siblings, and they're just
Yeah.
They're just growing faster. So it's so important for a parent to facilitate that growth in a positive manner, or else it can spiral out of control.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
I think of the story how you said that your niece had issues with someone at school, and your sister purposefully said, all right, every time we talk about this person comes up, we are going to say something nice about her, because she was facilitating healthy growth. Like, no, you do not
Yeah.
have to like every single person you meet, but you can't automatically hate them without like a reason. You can't hate them with a reason. But because Carissa took the step to say, you know what, not in my house, we're not doing that. And now she's facilitating and she's training her brain to think in a positive way immediately instead of disgust or something like that. So
Right.
that's really cool to witness that. Which leads us to our next stage of childhood. We're still in the childhood. This is the last kind of like stage within a stage, is development of social skills. So as children interact with peers, they learn those essential skills. Um, Sharing, cooperation, empathy, conflict resolution beyond "that's my block" or "I'm taking my ball and I'm going home." They're getting into actual problem solving skills, which I cannot stress this enough. It is absolutely foundational to building deeper friendships in later years. If they cannot get
Yeah.
basic concepts right now about how to navigate certain situations, they will not be able to. They basically won't be able to do it in the future, because if you don't have the rudimentary
Right.
skill, I mean, you see people all the time who are older hanging out with younger people, but they're not leading the younger people. They're acting just like the younger people. I'm not saying that every single older person who hangs out with a younger group is going to struggle with these things, but if they're not helping to lead the younger people and develop them, then they probably did not get those basic skills in a concrete manner when they were younger, because I mean, they're still
Yeah.
developing them with younger people.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move into the adolescent stage. This is going to range from about 13 to 19. So that those classic teen years. We did a whole episode about identity a few weeks ago, and this is where you're primarily going to see identity exploration. Adolescents undergo significant identity development, not just in their physical being, but in their emotional and, mental being, seeking to establish their sense of self. Where do they belong? Do they fit with a certain group? Do they have certain likes or dislikes, or like certain people? And friendships play a crucial role in this process, because they provide, healthy ones provide support, validation, and give them that outlet for self-expression. That's why it's so important to, as parents, even though you're not the one enrolling them in the, well, you might still be enrolling them in the classes, but it's to help them foster those healthy environments. Because if they're expressing themselves in an unhealthy environment, oh man, that could go so wrong, so
Yeah.
quickly. You also get into the stages of support, but it's like support not just, oh hey bestie, it's like an intimate support, and not physically intimate, but like a emotional connection. They start not only having these personal thoughts, but needing to express them to someone, feelings,
Right.
experiences that they don't feel comfortable always sharing with their parents. So as trust and loyalty develop in these people, that's why it's so devastating to a young person when someone breaks their trust, because it's like, whoa, I'm trusting someone for the first time outside of my parents. And in a teenager's mind, they're like, my parents have never gone through this. They're just old, So
Right. We all
they're
thought it.
we all thought it. I'm like, oh yeah, they have no idea what they're talking about. Um, so when kids confide in each other, then because they're immature, if that trust gets broken, that can be devastating. You also have the classic, middle school peer pressure, peer influence. Primarily, it is displayed as a negative. Oh, peer pressure. They're trying to get me to do drugs. They're trying to get me to smoke. They're trying to get me to drink. Um, but also, it's shaping attitudes. If you hang out with a rebellious friend, rebellious tendencies are going to get picked up on. It's not just like the physical acts of sin, smoking, drinking,
Right.
immorality, all that kind of stuff, but it's also behavior, values. Oh, well, my parents don't believe that, you know, marriage is between a man and a woman, so that's what I believe. And then your kid's like, well, love is whatever. And then you have an influence from a peer because factors like popularity and conformity, like
Mm-hmm.
groupthink, and it's such a tough age. Any like this range between 13 to 17 is so tough. um but I can't stress enough, and this episode is not about parental involvement. It's really not,
Yeah.
but it is such a huge factor.
Yeah, it has so much to do with childhood and adolescence.
Hmm.
My parents were like directly involved in all my friendships until I was an adult, really. And then they stayed involved and they wanted to like have their input, but also there were like boundaries and like, well, you're gonna do what you're gonna do.
And they stayed
But I remember
available.
up until, yeah, right. I like up until I was an adult, like, well, really up until I got my license, because if my mom was gonna take me somewhere, she was gonna be in full support of me going there. And there were groups that she was like, no, you're not gonna run with them. And at the time, of course, it's like, oh, you know nothing. But
Yeah.
like I'm super thankful for it now. And yeah, super glad that my parents were very involved in all my friendships until again I was an adult and then driving myself places and everything. And they didn't um, them not knowing exactly who was around was an adjustment at first.
Hmm.
um, but yeah, super thankful that they stayed in the know.
Yeah, and healthy parent child relationships also help with conflict and the resolution of conflict, because kids don't think clearly, right? I mean, it's hard enough when you're an adult with life experience to think clearly, but it's even more so when you're going through so many changes and peer pressure and all that stuff. So if they have conflicts amongst friendships and they have to navigate those opinions and values and interests and yada yada, if they don't have the rock at home, if they've got
Mm-hmm.
like judgy parents or people who are constantly demanding that they do things the certain way instead of helping them find that path, like, as you know, Kayla, we in the Anderson household love Adventures in Odyssey, and
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker is often known as the man who helps kids find their own answer instead of just outright telling them the answer,
Yes.
asking them questions to help them get to the point where they understand what's important, and giving them resources like biblical resources and life lessons, that kind of thing, to help them find the correct answer instead of saying, this is how you have to do it. So having a rock at
Mm-hmm.
home that's going to guide them into understanding, develop those problem solving skills and critical thinking skills, it's going to help them learn to manage conflict constructively. And
Right.
it's going to give them the foundation on which to build healthy relationships and the skills to maintain those healthy relationships.
Right. And then they're going to start asking themselves those questions when
Hmm.
conflict arises or when they're trying to make big decisions. And there's less parental involvement as you get older. You
Hmm.
have now been trained to be like, okay, what am I getting out of this friendship? Are they growing me? How do I
Yeah.
feel when they do this? Are they breaking my trust? All these things that like your parents teach you. And
Hmm.
then down the road, you can go through that yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can also help navigate this very difficult aspect of the formation of cliques. And
Mm,
I I'm a big one to say that cliques and friend groups are not the same thing, because there's
mhm.
just some people that you naturally gravitate to and there's people that you hit it off with, and that's why the friendship pyramid is a pyramid. It's not like a circle that gets segmented, because everything builds on each other. And if you start with a bunch of friends who are your acquaintances, if you want to think of all your kindergarten play pals as acquaintances, from there you'll build up in the pyramid, because as time goes on, as I like we always say that people navigate through the friendship pyramid between time and time spent and desire to spend time spent. That's how you navigate. So time spent with people in kindergarten moves on and on. You spend more and more time, you grow up together, and then over time they're your friend, your good friend, and your best friend. And so when these things like cliques and form, that is when people who are friends cut off other people, either former friends
Mm-hmm.
or say, okay, zoop, this is it. No more people are going to be here. And we're better than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Aggressively denying other people access to you as a friend. Again, you do not have to hit it off with every single person. I don't hit it off with every single person. But I'm
No, of
also
course.
like, if they want to go out and have coffee with me or go out with me and my friends, they're welcome to. But we're also
Yeah,
not expect
absolutely.
people to like have a whole posse with us just because we're a friend group. So the thing about
Right.
adolescence is that these cliques form,
Mm.
and it's primarily based off of identity. Um, Especially like the popular ones, like, oh, they're the wealthy ones, or oh, they're the ones who play volleyball or whatever. And those groups provide a sense of belonging and solidarity for those within them, but they also are cutting off other people. For it's a negative for people in the clique and people who are out of the clique. People who are out of the clique don't feel
Right.
like they belong anywhere. People who are in the clique are limiting themselves to other people, other experiences. Like we talked about
Mhm.
last week in the small groups versus large friend groups. There's so much perspective to be gained by having a large network of people. No, you don't have to hang out with them every single minute of every single day, but you cannot limit yourself to us for no more, because you will never grow beyond that.
Right. Yeah. I just had a chat about this with some middle schoolers. I work in a middle school classroom throughout the week. And I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal, but I like it's definitely something that could turn into something bigger. There were three students who like they're starting to form a little bit of a clique. And they were all sharing the same highlighter. And then student number four, who was not in the group, like I could tell they waited patiently until like all three students had used the highlighter. And then they said, can I use the highlighter now? And then like the other three students were like, no, no, you cannot.
No.
I was like, I immediately stepped in, put my Miss K boots on, and I was just like, no, absolutely not. You guys are done with the highlighter and you're going to let them use the highlighter. Like, and then I had, a whole chat with one of those students about how, like, it's not okay. And
Yeah.
it's, you don't have to be best friends with student number four, but uh, you can share a highlighter with them. You don't
Yeah.
need to be all clicky like that.
And you also don't need to make
But
her
like
feel
it
bad
starts
for
like
wanting to
that.
be a part.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been that friend number four before, and it's
Uh-huh.
not fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it definitely starts like that. And it can, into adulthood, which we're going to talk about, it can be really hurtful and painful for some
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah. Another thing about cliques is, especially with 4 or 5 person cliques, there's usually one person of the clique who's kind of like wants to be friendly with other people and wants to be the bridge between the clique and the outside world, but they're terrified of what the group will think of them.
Yeah.
Group think. They're like, they want to be friends with other people on the DL, but if they were asked about it, like, no, no, I would never do that, because they don't want to risk themselves getting excluded.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish nothing but strength on those people in all the cliques in the world, because if they have the courage to stand up and be like, hey, come on, guys, give her the highlighter. That is the
Mm-hmm.
conflict resolution skills and positive thinking that can shift the dynamic of, like, not to sound dramatic, but like an entire generation, because it will spread. And if
Yeah,
everyone had that kind of thing, it would make teenage life a lot easier for people, I think.
absolutely.
At the end of our teenage years, we enter into adulthood, typically viewed around the age of 18. However, these days, 18-year-olds are pretty much the same as like 16-year-olds. So, uh, just for an even cutoff, we're going to go ahead and say 20. 20 and above, and obviously adulthood is so much more than just 20 to 30 or 30 to 40. You have up until 70, 80s, even 90s, 100 years old. But for the sake of our conversation, we're just going to keep it at like 20 and above. From coming from high school and into college, you start to develop the idea of quality over quantity. I don't need half the school to like me. I need a few people that I can trust. Individuals who are mature, they'll prioritize the quality over quantity and focus on developing the deeper, more meaningful connections rather than having that giant social circle that's full of nothing but shallow relationships.
Right.
You're also going into life transitions and changes. What's interesting about this topic is we're kind of doing a recap of the season so far, the last 20 episodes, because we've done episodes on quality over quantity. We've done life episodes on life transitions and all this stuff that we're going through. So this is you'll see this kind of stuff in adulthood. Life transitions and changes evolve. Adult friendships are going to evolve because of things like career, college, moving to a new city, getting married, having kids, moving into higher roles of ministry. Like that definitely plays a role in friendships, and maintaining friendships in those life transitions requires effort and adaptability in those changing circumstances. And if you want a full breakdown of this concept, go back to episode, no, I don't even know, episode probably 6 or 7. This is a long one, like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Where we talked about this. And we do a whole episode breakdown on this topic. You're also in adulthood kind of gravitating to exclusively your shared values. If you think about in middle school and high school, you are just stuck in a environment with a ton of people from a ton of different backgrounds with a ton of different worldviews. Well, when you're an adult, you can choose who you want to surround yourself with significantly more than who your parents exposed you to or who the school system exposed you to. So you connect with people who have the same values, interests, like the church thing. Like everyone who goes to church by and large has the same values and the same life, not necessarily the same life experience, because we all come, we've all been delivered from different things, but interests, you all want to work for the kingdom, right? Other people, it's their sports teams, it's their job, it's their hobbies, it's their, career, or like college alum. You're choosing to spend, you're choosing to develop your network. And then people find support in those groups and they give you encouragement and empathy, and they fill the gap where you would otherwise be lonely. And so choosing to spend time with people who have shared values is something that you're going to see pretty much exclusively in the adulthood area of friendship. And then you also, because of life transitions, you have to learn how to balance friendships with responsibilities. I mean, this is literally like a review of our season, because we talk about how to navigate work, family, personal pursuits, and it could sometimes limit, and you really have to push to maintain things that you would normally had. It would just been easy for you when you're all 17 and you can just go out after youth and spend hours or whatever. Well, now it's like, oh man, I got to get up and go to work. So that's where your prioritizing and scheduling becomes essential to being able to balance that.
Yep.
Yeah. And lastly, something that you're going to see in adulthood versus childhood and adolescence is the longevity and the stability. Theoretically, once you get into adulthood, you should be mature enough to know how to keep a friendship going and therefore be able to endure more issues than like, she called me a name, she stole my truck, she won't let me sit with her at lunch, all those kinds of things that are just the entire world to people, of younger ages. And the bonds that are forged over life events are going to be stronger. And then your shared experience and your funny things that happen and all that stuff is all going to be built into your shared history, the trust, the memories, and therefore have more stability in your friendship. And it's almost it's really hard to see adult friendships crumble. I've seen it so many times, and it's not just because of time and space, it's because of lack of communication, lack
Immaturity.
of lack of maturity, not fighting for what you have, fighting to keep it going. If you see that something is like needs to be talked about or worked through, do it. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Like losing it is so much worse than having some uncomfortable conversations and getting on the same page. So to maintain that longevity and stability, you might have to overcome some things, but you're going to be better off for it in the future.
Absolutely.
That actually wraps up episode 21 of Friendeavor the podcast. I think we've told you guys we have a 35 episode season slated for this first season, and then we're going to take the summer off. Just for you guys to know, coming up, I got spring break coming up, so we're going to be taking a week off for that. And then we also have No Limits coming up, so we're going to take off a week for that. But we are so excited for what the rest of the season brings. We've got special guests that are getting scheduled. Actually, tomorrow I've got a list of dates going out to a very special guest to see what day she's able to join us. So keep an eye out.
You
for
guys
that.
will not want to miss that one.
You will not want to. And we will be posting all the good stuff on Friendeavor, the Instagram at Friendeavor. And we have our giveaway that will be announced February 13th, tomorrow, Galentine's Day. Well, actually, when you hear this,
tomorrow,
Valentine's
we're
Day,
recording this.
so it would have been yesterday. So I can't wait to see who won a copy of 52 Friend Dates for them and their friend.
Woohoo!
It'll be good. Thank you to all who participated. All right, we hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Friendeavor the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's content, leave a review and share with a friend. You can find the show notes on our website, www.friendeavor.net, and in the description of this episode.
Friendship is a journey. It's an endeavor. We'll see you next time on Friendeavor.